I think in India we have this misconception that anything handmade should be low price. Just because something has a branded label on it doesn't mean it's worth more. Something that has more craftsmanship in it should be valued. When we have given this opportunity to the women to be skilled, right? So they are first time learners, right? Then to become first time earners. No matter how brilliant, creative, multi-skilled, multifaceted you are as an individual, as an entrepreneur, you will only get that far if you try and do it by yourself. Build a team.
In a world racing toward automation, one woman chose to pause and preserve. From reviving dying crafts in forgotten villages to empowering over 10,000 artisans, rural women, and the specially abled, she has transformed creativity into livelihood and sustainability into a way of life. Her story isn't just about entrepreneurship. It's about empathy, innovation, and a deep love for India's handmade heritage. Today on Expressions podcast, we meet this changemaker, Mayura Balasubramanian, the founder and CEO of Craftizen Foundation.
Today on the Expression podcast, we meet a change maker from Bangalore, Mayura Balasubramanian, the founder and CEO of Craftizen Foundation. Hi Mayura, thank you for coming to Expressions. Really inspired by your work, and I want to get to know you more through this chat.
Thank you, Neha. Looking forward.
Yeah. So growing up in a nomadic family and wandering around and also spending summer vacations as a child doing crafts and other activities, how did these early experiences shape you?
So, when I was a kid, I used to wonder why we are shifting so much, By the time I was 10 years old and we'd moved to Bangalore, I was joining my 7th school. But now when I look back, I'm so happy for those experiences, because that's where I got to experience the richness of our country in various forms, right? Our culture, wildlife, history, heritage. And my brother is a sporty kid and I was the nerdy kid, So he would go to sports like cricket camps and I would go for an art culture, camp, any holiday, any, summer break. I think slowly, not that I'm great with what I do, but I think just that it was a way to unleash, creativity and just enjoy the process. So I think that's how I just fell in love with this whole process of creation, of innovation, of experimentation. And I would have to credit my parents for introducing me when I was very young. My mom used to often pick me up from school and take me straight to a craft mela or an art gallery. And so I've just come to look upon it as just a very necessary part of my life. Yeah.
I don't know, those simple moments back then were precious. I think even I used to spend a lot of time doing these glass painting coasters and pencil stands and my parents still have them. So when you think about it, you have this nostalgic feeling.
Absolutely, I think parents are the best. Right? They're so proud of whatever you make.
Yeah, exactly.
So, my parents have all the knickknacks I've made. No matter how average it might be, for them it's like, a work of art to be celebrated.
Absolutely. Yeah. So also tell us a little bit more about this considerable time that you spent in Ahmedabad. What were what feelings or images comes to your mind first when you think about it?
So Ahmedabad is home to some of the best educational institutions, and especially many of the creative institutions. So I was actually in Xavier's and I was doing my BA economics. And but we used to interact a lot with NID, with NIFT, with the School of Architecture, CEPT. And I remember it was a lot of fun getting together to do a theatre play, for example, or doing something interesting culturally. That, I would say, just, mingling and interacting of different perspectives, especially to do something creative, that was really special.
Sure.
And I used to be very active with the Darpan Academy as well, which is set up by Malika Sarabhai, and go there and do these interesting workshops and camps as well. So I feel, and of course Ahmedabad is so rich in terms of the craft, right? You talk about whether it's embroidery, whether it's the block printing,
it's the mirror work,
of course. There's just so much beauty. So I remember all through college, I used to get all my kurtas tailored because I would love to go to the old city and
Yeah.
pick out those fabrics,
Yeah.
mix and match, and make my own styles, whatever it is,
Yeah.
you know. So
What fun,
yeah, I
huh?
think I would say Ahmedabad got me to really,
Explore.
explore a lot of my
Yeah.
creativity. And I was also part of ISEC, which
Okay.
is this, world's largest, I suppose, volunteer-led
Yes.
organization. So ISEC really also made me interact with people from different colleges, different streams, and gave me this love for management. Even though I was doing economics, I was very clear, okay, I'm going to do my MBA because of the ISEC
Yeah,
exposure.
yeah.
So
And
Ahmedabad is very special, yeah.
absolutely, I can totally feel it.
And the food, let's not forget the food. Amazing food,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you also went on to do your MBA in ISB. What was that like? What benefits did you get? Any takeaways from that?
I always tell people the best ROI from B school is the network.
Yeah.
And when you go to a top tier school like ISB, the network is just fabulous.
Sure.
And throughout my entrepreneurial journey, the network has been so kind. The school itself, the alumni, professors, I think just everybody has been so supportive.
Okay.
So that's definitely, a huge, invaluable sort of, support.
Sure.
But also, I came from having done arts, right? So not really exposed as much to, say, finance or technology or operations. So doing an MBA just gives you this broad picture overview of literally all aspects of management, and it gives you that comfort level.
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur, you really have to know all aspects of your business, right?
Sure.
You may not be an expert, but you need to know how to read a balance sheet. You need to understand everything from marketing to operations to technology to HR to compliance and legality, you name it, right? So I think it just gave me that comfort level. Even many of my team members ask me, should we do an MBA? And I say, listen, it's the best foundational course you can get in management,
Yeah.
right? In general management.
Yeah.
After that, you can choose to specialize basis your expertise and interest. But just that overview, especially for an entrepreneur, is
Yeah.
really useful.
So you're also the founder of Craftizen Foundation and initiated many programs like Kalashala, Green Skilling, Swayam Shakti for Women, traditional craft revival programs. How did you end up in such an offbeat, unconventional, and fascinating career?
I guess, like I said, my early years where I was exposed to a lot of craft and culture, that was definitely a huge influence. But when I did decide, this was a couple of years after I did my MBA, I did decide that, okay, I do want to switch to the development sector. I remember asking a friend who was already in this sector, and he said, listen, you don't, if somebody says they want to join the corporate sector, it's a very broad field,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's so many different
Sure.
subsectors and functions. So in the same way, what is it in this development sector that interests you? Is it education? Is it health? Is it water? Is it sanitation? Is it livelihoods, etc., right? So that's when I started reading up a little more, visiting and meeting people in this space, and I realized that there is a way to take my love for culture, heritage, craft, and use it by way of livelihoods.
Sure.
So then I again did some more research and said, are there any such projects? Because it definitely is a niche area
Yeah.
when you look at the broader sector. And I was very fortunate that I came across a couple of really interesting opportunities, and I was able to, land one of them. Yeah.
Sure, amazing. And what kind of training experiences do women and others get in through these programs? And what traditional Indian crafts were you able to revive? Can you give us some examples or name
Yeah.
some of them?
Craft has this amazing quality that it can be customized
Yeah.
to suit the ability.
Absolutely.
So if you're a skilled master artisan who comes from, say, generations of doing this, you can support them by giving them design, innovation,
Sure.
sales, marketing, technology support, right? If it's an able-bodied but unskilled woman who's never had the opportunity to finish schooling or to actually be employed before because they don't have the skills, so they're first-time learners, we basically introduce them right from scratch. So women who've never threaded a needle, have learned tailoring and embroidery and crochet and become experts at it. People have learned block printing, screen printing, different types of jewelry. For example, we've done this beautiful project in Shantiniketan, Bolpur, where we've taught Bena grass jewelry. It's like a grass that only grows in that region. And so, and of course, our adults with intellectual disability, because they have limited fine motor skills, you can actually break down the craft into simple steps.
Yeah.
I think that's what Craftizen has done successfully. We've been able to say that, okay, there are so many different craft skills, but can we look at ability-based skills? Can we also look at skills that have a market?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, the skill must lead to income and employment.
Sure.
So yeah, that's what we've done.
I'd love to meet some of these women that you've
Yes,
trained.
yes.
So your green skilling program is both innovative and deeply emotional. What inspired you to turn temple flowers waste into a livelihood center?
There were multiple factors,
Yeah.
Our very first donor, they actually gave us this challenge. They said, they had actually coined the term green skilling,
Yeah.
and they said, can you come up with craft skills that are also beneficial to the environment, maybe by upcycling, recycling waste? And can you also look at communities that are not able to access your traditional skill training programs? So they can't go to ITIs, etc., right? So with that sort of, dual challenge, I embarked on, a little bit of a Bharat Yatra and research, and, I realized that adults with intellectual disability, there are actually 3 categories. You have mild, moderate, severe.
Yeah.
And
It's
most
a
of us
spectrum,
don't,
yeah.
yes, it's a spectrum and we don't realize it. And there's also different types.
Yeah.
I think in society, we don't really know the difference between, say, autism and Down syndrome, cerebral palsy,
Yeah.
mental illness, mental retardation. There are different categories. India actually has the largest population of adults with intellectual disability, and especially those with moderate to severe don't have access. Many of them are not even able to get to the daycare centers, but those who can, it's only engagement enough to, just keep them busy, but not beyond. So that was one community I just wanted to do something with, and like I said, craft I felt just could be suited, made suitable. And then of course the challenge of green skilling. And somehow I did read up and I did visit one center up north where I saw the flower work being done, but it had not been introduced to South India. So we said, okay, we went to Nimhans with this idea.
Okay.
And the doctors there loved this concept. They said, absolutely, it sounds like something deeply therapeutic because it's a natural material.
Yeah.
And of course, the fact that we're also,
Yeah.
Going to save these flowers
Yeah.
from reaching water bodies and polluting them. So that's how it all sort of came together piece by piece. There was this challenge, and then we sort of did all of this research, and then we were able to find the right collaborators and partners. So that's how it all came together. And Nimhans actually appointed a PhD student who was doing her thesis at the time, and over 2 years she was able to document the impact of the project. And we actually published that paper. It was co-authored by Nimhans and Craftizen in an international mental health journal. And it talks about the therapeutic as well as the cognitive and income generating benefits of the flower recycling program. So I think that, is, so I know that it's not just a gut feeling, it's actually something that's been tested and verified. And that's how we've been able to get now partners in 11 states.
So what is the most moving or transformative story you witnessed among people with intellectual disabilities through this program?
There are so many stories. There is this one remand home that we work with, and the remand home has youth, boys who are basically rescued, say railway stations, bus stops, etc., where they are found abandoned or lost. And because they have intellectual disability, they don't know their home address, which town, village, city they might be from. So while that process is being figured out by the government, they're at this remand home. Sort of a small group of them were involved in our flower recycling project. And what we found is there was a perceptible change in their self-image because they were going to a place of work and employment. So every morning there is this carton of clothes that is put, and they all pick out their clothes, right? These 10 boys would line up to be the first so that they could pick out the best ones to wear because they are going to work,
Yeah.
right? And they would make sure they are on time, and if there is a target to be done, like X kgs of flowers need to be depetaled or X kgs of, say holy colors needs to be made, they would make sure that even if it means putting in a little extra time, they would just be committed to that. And what we found is that there was the self-respect, like I said, but also this purpose.
Something to look forward to when you get up in the
Yes.
morning, right?
And that satisfaction
Yeah.
of being able to complete a task.
Yeah.
Some of them struggle with not being able to tie shoelaces, for example, and struggle with some daily tasks that I think the rest of us just take for granted. But to be able to be given tasks that they are able to do,
Yeah.
that is suited to their ability, we just found that had such an impact.
Yeah.
They were easier to manage also at the center because they were calmer. They were less agitated, less prone to, aggressive behavior or other, mood swings,
Yeah.
etc. So just giving, somebody something
Sense of
purposeful
self.
and dignified
Yeah.
to do, that can have a lot of benefits in their daily life.
Tell us a little bit more about how exactly the NABARD's Social Entrepreneur Fellowship works. How does that work?
So NABARD has various different fellowship programs. I was very fortunate that when I was still thinking about, whether I should start or not, should I actually take this plunge, a classmate of mine and who was already a social entrepreneur, he urged me to apply. Ever grateful to him. So NABARD had this Rural Innovations Fund,
Sure.
and they were looking at business plans for rural livelihoods.
Okay.
Now in rural India, after agriculture, handicrafts and handlooms are the
Next,
biggest
yeah.
employers.
Yeah.
From multiple applications, they shortlisted about 6 of us, and we all came either from agriculture or handicrafts,
Yeah.
handlooms. My elevator pitch was basically I wanted to connect the craft sector to the corporate sector.
Okay.
I felt like there are many unmet gaps here.
Yeah.
CSR funded programs, because the CSR 2% law had just come out at that time, and I felt this is a great way for corporates to become modern day patrons of craft, but also for corporates to become consumers of curated products like corporate gifts and festive gifts and events and conferences, and also to do workshops for better awareness and interaction with crafts. They loved this simplicity of this idea, and I was one of the 3 winners, and I got a fellowship. And at that time, the fellowship came with about 10 lakhs of grant money. It's not a lot, but it's definitely enough when you're still getting started, right?
Sure.
So for me, it was, I think, just the validation I needed to quit my job, get started. Thankfully, I think today in India, there are so many opportunities for entrepreneurs, right? Different fellowship programs, incubators. I've been part of a few of them over these, many years, and they've all been very useful, not just for the sort of curriculum they make you go through or sort of a lot of self-introspection, but also the network that you build.
Sure.
Because an entrepreneur can relate to another entrepreneur, and I think especially social entrepreneurs, because we're not chasing the same, end goals that say regular entrepreneurs are.
Sure.
So it's nice to have a support system. People you can be brutally honest with. Sometimes all you want to do is actually just vent. You do want to talk about things that are not necessarily going right as well, and you also want to celebrate your wins when they happen. So that network is super valuable.
Nice. Super nice. So you've been consistently working with artisans across India and on craft-based skill development programs, and I noticed that this interest has been really sturdy over the last few years. So is that something that heartens you? I mean, does that that gives you a deep sense of fulfillment?
I actually started Craftizen with the idea of benefiting traditional crafts because of that focus of connecting, being that bridge that connects the crafts and the corporate sectors. I realized it would be good to identify crafts that could be innovated on to suit this target segment. For example, the fact that that corporate India today is still 65-70% male. So therefore, looking at crafts that could be made into unisex products. looking at crafts that you could also make smaller functional items with that are easy for gifting, easy to use, say at a workplace, at at a work desk. It can't be something very big and unyieldy,
Sure.
or something that is not purely decorative but has a utilitarian value as well. So therefore, after sort of doing that sort of analysis, I thought wood is a good material because wood kind of met all of these criteria.
Sure.
It can also be produced in bulk because there are, it's a combination of working with the hand but also working on machines, and therefore there is more productivity and efficiency. So that's how we started working with the Banaras wooden toys cluster first. And then Chennapatna, closer home,
Yeah.
and Cheriyal, because that's working with
Yeah.
tamarind seed and
Yeah.
sawdust. So yeah, I'll talk about that in some time. I feel just having that focus of working with crafts, but again,
Yeah.
the clarity that it must be for an end purpose, which is market driven and suited to the consumer segment we had in mind. That sort of made it easier to pick.
So you've also revived endangered crafts like
Yeah.
Cheriyal that you just mentioned. What did you feel when you stepped into the village where only 7 artisan families were left?
So I actually started Craftizen when I was living in Hyderabad.
Okay.
And one of the first groups I started working with was Cheriyal, because it's quite close to Hyderabad.
Okay.
It's about 2.5 hours away. And so I already knew the artisans. I was already working with the some of the master artisan families. This craft actually has more demand than supply, right? So there was definitely a need to revive this craft. So the story to Cheriyal is also interesting. Originally, there were these storytellers who used to go from village to village talking about stories of mythology, and they would use these large scroll paintings, to talk about the story of mythology, and they would also have these dolls, right, to visually sort of represent that story. And so they would commission their scrolls
Sure.
to the Cheriyal artisans.
Okay.
But over time, as the art of storytelling died, the artisans also were impacted, and the craft had nearly died when there was one large mural painting that was commissioned at a temple. I would say the great grandfather of many of the existing artisans, he said, okay, I will take this on, and literally from one artisan today it sort of became 7 families, right? So slowly. But the craft then underwent a transformation. Those big scroll paintings now became smaller framed paintings. The big dolls now became smaller masks. And so we had been innovating. We came up with some few, products like a spectacle holder, which is really fun, and like a pen stand and things like that, right? So
fun.
yeah, and we found that there's always more demand than supply because this is a really laborious craft. It goes through multiple stages. So we knew we wanted to do this revival project, but we needed a donor because this is a very complex craft. You can't learn how to do those very fine lines of painting unless you have months of practice at that skill. And even after that, not everybody might be able to do the final touches, right? We were again very thankful that NABARD Telangana, they came on board, and NAB Foundation as well. Compared to many of our other crafts, this was 10x the price per person to skill because it was going to take us that much longer. Once we had that donor on board, we always knew we wanted to do it in the village because it has a GI tag, and therefore you have to respect that GI and do it in the location it's from. The women we work with, right, they knew that our village is famous for this craft, but beyond that, no real interaction, not much. There were some other skill training programs, so some of them had gone also. But those again were I would say the program again didn't translate, right? So you, like I said, you can't expect that in 3 months somebody is going to suddenly go from, not knowing how to sketch and draw to becoming master, right? You have to be at it. So we committed ourselves to that. It took a year of funding and it took another year of just hand holding to get it right. We said, don't worry about whether it is sellable or not. Just focus on the skill. So today we've got, out of those 30 women, about 8 to 10 are working full time, and some of the others work part time as and when. and they have become such proud ambassadors of the craft, right? They are now proud,
Can
not just of
understand.
the craft and the heritage that is of the village, but the fact that they are also a part of
Yeah.
it. We
Great
actually started
feeling.
making smaller items because
Yeah.
that will be easier for them to do.
Sure.
So instead of a big mask, we said, okay, why not make a small magnet? So initially, each woman would struggle to make maybe even 10, 15 good magnets. Today, our unit I think produces more than 1,000 magnets a month, and there is still a shortage. And I think this is the best validation,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
For the hard work our women have put in to really
Yeah.
perfect the craft.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's always stay special.
Awesome. So nice to hear this, and what a great feeling, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So my next question, actually, we've already spoken about how you've, the people whom you've transformed, they've got this feeling of self. But what does dignity of labor mean to you when it comes to rural women, artisans, and specially abled individuals?
Most of the women, and I'll talk about them first, that we work with, they have not had the opportunity or the choice to make any real significant life decision, whether they can study or not, whether they want to get married or not, whether they want to have children or not, what's the kind of work they have to do, etc. Right? They've never really had a choice in
Sure.
any aspect of their lives. They've not really had the opportunity to learn any professional skill either.
Yeah.
Because of location, because of family circumstances, economic conditions especially. So I think when we have given this opportunity to the women to be skilled, right? So they are first time learners,
Yeah.
right? Then to become first time earners, to actually have that skill generate
Yeah.
an income, livelihood,
Yeah.
and also give them the flexibility to do it. So it's not like they have to go to a factory, set up 9 to 5. They can work from home, they can go to a center if they want, they can take their young kids along, right? So it's also like a daycare,
Yeah, yeah.
and just that camaraderie of meeting other women
Yeah.
and doing this work
Yeah.
together. So just giving them a very safe space. So I think dignity really means a lot, all of these different
Yeah.
things coming together. It's the fact that they have a choice, firstly, in what they do with their lives. It's just having also the agency to say that, okay, now that I've got this income, I can use it for my kids' education, I can use it for something for the family, I can use it to buy myself a mobile phone, because very often they don't have access to this, right? It's usually the men in the family who have access to that.
Sure.
So just having that agency and choice, to me, that really embodies dignity of labor.
So you've also worked with the innovative endogenous tourism project with the United Nations Development Program and the Ministry of Tourism. So how did you get on that path, and how did this come about? I was just curious about
So this is
it.
an interesting story.
Yeah.
So remember I told you I did all of that research,
Yeah.
and I figured out, are there any opportunities
Yeah.
for something that is connected to craft, culture,
Yeah.
heritage. And through like a friend of a friend, I found out, okay, there is some such project on rural tourism which is craft and culture based. So I just picked up the phone and I dialed the number. I called the Delhi office, and I was in Bangalore then, and I said, is there a vacancy? They said no, but there might be, so just keep on the lookout. So I was like, can you give me a timeline? They said no, anytime in the next 3-4 months, but keep a lookout. I said okay. So in the meantime, I decided to go to Delhi, and I was working on a business plan project for this very famous artist called Jatin Das. And he was setting up the Jatin Das Center for Art, JDCA, in his hometown, Bhubaneswar. And so I was part of that project for about 3-4 months. And while that engagement was ending, I suddenly saw a notice for like a vacancy for this project, the Indigenous Tourism project, and the deadline was the next day. So I was like, okay, I was so, it's literally, I feel like the universe came together.
I was just going to tell you that actually.
Yeah. So I literally like worked, all night, sent in my application. It needed reference letters as well, thankfully that also came together in time, and sent it off. And then my assignment in Delhi ended. I came back to Bangalore. I was waiting, no response. Meanwhile, parents are getting little antsy, like, what is happening? Beta, kuch karna hai zindagi mein. And I was like, no, I'm waiting to hear back from them. I was like, literally, I had all my eggs in one basket, right? And then, like, I don't know, it just happened. I mean, they reached out to me about 5 weeks or so after I had sent in the application and said, listen, you've been shortlisted. There's an interview
Wow.
next week. It was an online interview. The day after the interview, they said, you have been selected, you're through. And it was my dream job. We were a small 3-member team responsible for implementing this rural tourism project in 20 states, 36 villages, from Uttarakhand to Kerala, from Gujarat to Tripura. We had, these community-owned village centers all over. So it was a Bharat Darshan. It was a grassroots level exposure. Till then, I actually didn't have much grassroots level, exposure and hands-on experience working with communities. So that really defined, I would say, the way I thought about the development sector. It taught me to think at scale, right? At one shot, like our pilot program was 36 villages, 20 states. It was bringing together all the different stakeholders in our village, from your panchayat to families who are interested in hosting homestays, to obviously the performing artists, traditional artists, cuisine providers, youth we could train to be hospitality and tourist guides, right? It was a fantastic project.
Oh, sure.
And under the Ministry of Tourism's Incredible India banner, we created a sub-brand called Explore Rural India.
Okay.
And I was fortunate enough to bring out a coffee table book as well that's called Explore Rural India.
Okay.
And that was, published by Rolly Books, and towards the end of the project we released that. So that experience was just, I think it was life-changing. And I really want to thank the universe, for manifesting it for me and bringing it together.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad it all worked out so perfectly, actually.
Yeah, really fortunate.
Yeah. So, if Craftizen's journey could teach you one lesson about purpose, what would that message be to India's youth?
I think purpose is firstly something deeply personal. I would tell everybody, think of it as a guiding light. So I have been fortunate that I could articulate my purpose. This is something I did at a fellowship program many years back. I've never shared it, but happy to share it now
Yeah, sure.
with you. The way I looked at my purpose is that I want to help people unlock their creative potential and harness that power to transform their lives. Even if, say, 100 other people had the same purpose, the way they would choose to
Do it.
Yes,
Yeah.
to implement that in their lives would be very different,
Yeah.
right? So I would just tell the youth that there are exercises that you can do to figure out what
Yeah.
that purpose is,
Yeah.
right? It requires a lot of introspection.
Yeah.
And then don't be bothered about it being an outcome or a goal,
Yeah.
right? It's a
Yeah.
guiding light. So use that in across different facets of your life, be it your vocation, your profession, your personal life, your hobbies, your interactions, etc. So yeah, let me take away the pressure from
Yeah,
my
yeah,
purpose, my
yeah,
purpose.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
know that it's something beautiful,
Sure.
that, and once you know it, it's just a process.
Let it flow.
Yes, let it flow.
Lovely. And during COVID, you adapted to the situation and created masks, which were the need of the hour.
Yeah.
So, who and how did this idea come about? Who brought this idea? And how did this move help you continue with your efforts?
I have to say again, I feel there are so many times when things have just come together.
Yeah, I can see
And
with your.
yeah, and there's just so much gratitude. So we are, I think, one of those entities that actually grew during COVID. We grew, I think, 4x in those 2 years because primarily we were able to pivot quickly. We made masks. We made these work from home desktop kits. We did DIY kits so that
Yeah.
people and
Yeah,
families
keep them
can do
busy,
something
yeah.
creative together. And the masks especially was something that was just born out of a need of a lot of people asking us,
Yeah.
are you making masks? Lockdown was happening, and in Karnataka it was very strict, but luckily we had a center in Hyderabad, and there you were allowed to be open from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Okay.
So basically what we decided is we will open the center in the morning.
Ah.
And thankfully again we had just completed 2 big batches of tailoring. So our women were just ripe and ready. And this is in a basti. one of the largest urban slums of Hyderabad, and in the middle of that basti we have the center, right? So it was right there next to their homes. We could make sure that it was, sanitized, and because it was people from the community, they felt comfortable, and only 2-3 people from my team would go. So basically, we initially started making a few masks, testing them out, trying them out, and we started getting in orders. And then we felt the tailoring skills are being used, but what about the embroidery and the painting? What about those artisans? So we wanted something for them as well. So we started coming up with some fun ideas, and I love my nose rings, right? So I was telling, as soon as lockdown opened, I went to Hyderabad, and I was telling one of our artisans, she was asking me, how come you're not wearing your nose ring? I said, what's the point? Anyway, mark se to dhakne wala hai. She said, मैं कुछ करती हूँ. So she drew a nose pin on the mask, and then she also sort of extended it like that, right? And I was so touched by that gesture. I put it on my social media, and suddenly that became our bestseller, right? And once we saw that, we said, hey, what about people with mustaches? They can't show it. And so that became another bestseller of ours. And so I think it's just that co-creation which throughout, and we came up with some really cute embroidered masks. And the whole idea was, can we do something that engages all of the skills that we've taught to our artisans,
and also yet come up with something fun,
yet come up with something fun.
So how do you reset yourself to be creative? Do you have any rituals?
Yes, I love going for melas and art galleries, and the Biennale in Kochi, which happens every 2 years.
It's happening
that's
now
my
in
soul
December.
therapy. Yes, I'm planning to go in January. So for me, this is like the reset that I need, and I also like to go for wildlife safaris. So just being with nature, being away from the hustle bustle of our daily lives, but also going to areas where there's no network, no signal, cutting myself off. So I think these are the couple of things I do to just give
Much
myself,
needed, right?
like I said, soul therapy is what I call this.
So do you think India is slowly losing its connection with handmade crafts, and how can we rebuild that appreciation in the younger generation? What are your thoughts?
I feel those who are already converted, they have become even more deeply passionate because they understand the dire situation that a lot of our artisans and weavers are in. For the younger generation, I think again, right, the ones who are aware and who are eco-conscious are making those choices. But for the large part, many of the others are swayed by fast fashion. They are swayed by wanting to always flaunt something new and different on, their social media and things like that. It does require a lot more awareness. So that's primary. Secondly, I feel if we can integrate this very early on, if we can somehow find a way to build this awareness as part of our curriculum. What happens is, unless you go into higher studies, especially to say design schools, where that's part of your learning, they are of course very deeply then entrenched. But most others are just not exposed to it, right?
I agree.
So I feel if that's one thing that we could do, right? Find a way to integrate it into our curriculum. And every state of India has like a plethora of these crafts.
Absolutely.
So find a way for kids to get engaged. Call the artisans. They would love to share their story. And that would also give them that much needed respect. Just find ways to get children
spread
to,
awareness.
to just be exposed to interact. Otherwise, they think everything is machine made and industry made. They don't realize the difference between what is handmade and hand embroidered,
and the efforts that goes behind it, right?
Exactly.
So if every Indian could understand one insight about our artisans, what should that be?
I think in India we have this misconception that anything handmade should be low priced, should be inexpensive. But that's exactly the opposite. Just because something has a branded label on it doesn't mean it's worth more. Something that has more craftsmanship in it should be valued.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a big misconception I would love to see, change. And that directly impacts the dignity of an artisan. So if you're going to bargain and haggle, Whereas you walk into a store and just because there's a price tag willing to pay for it, whether or not you think it's worth it,
Yeah.
but you're willing to do it because, hey, you know. But here is somebody, you know, with their own, you know, hard work and effort and skill and talent
Time also.
and time. Yeah, they have come up with something beautiful and unique. No two pieces can be exactly the same, right? So it's really, each piece is a work of art, and yet you want to haggle. And honestly, if you look at the longevity, right? If you look at the, I mean, a craft is something that you can just pass on as an heirloom. You take care of it, it will last for years and years. So it's not about making it transactional and saying, oh, you know, today it is worth so much. No, just think about it as something that's your encouraging, supporting our traditional craft, culture, heritage, but also you're honestly getting value for money. You're getting something that's going to, you know, many times outlive you.
And how do you balance empathy with efficiency when running a social enterprise?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of it is about trust building. I think when you're working with communities, they are not going to see like change in their lives overnight, right? It is a journey, it's a process. But you have to treat them as your partners, as your stakeholders in this process, not just as workers, right? And when you do that and when you build that trust, that's when you bring in empathy, because you then also take the time to understand what are their challenges
and their needs.
Yeah, what are their needs, but also what are their dreams, what are their aspirations. So I think once you do that, you bring in that empathy, then automatically it makes it a lot easier. And then when you sort of show that path, saying, okay, today you're here, if you continue to practice, if you continue to be regular and stay committed, this is where you can get to. That then brings in that efficiency, that brings in greater productivity. So at the core of it, it's all trust building.
And what are some of the critical social entrepreneurial skills essential for today's business environment? Also tell me, what is the number one skill needed to be a successful social entrepreneur?
I think the number one is be adaptable, be flexible. Because no business plan, however great you think it is, will get executed the exact way you imagine. There are so many externalities that are not in your control. There's just so many things, right? Especially when you work with communities, when you work with, you know, so many people, and you work with different locations, different supply chains, different markets, different all of that. So there are a lot of things that are not in your control. So the best thing you can do for yourself is to be flexible, be adaptable, learn to just embrace that. So change is the only thing constant in life. Change is the only thing constant in entrepreneurship, right? It's exactly that. So that would be the number one skill. And second, definitely build a team. You know, nothing can be done solo. No matter how brilliant, creative, you know, multi-skilled, multifaceted you are as an individual, as an entrepreneur, you will only get that far if you try and do it by yourself. Build a team.
How has your spiritual journey impacted your career of social entrepreneurship? And did you find comfort in change? Are you spiritual?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think so. I try to do, even if it's just 10 minutes of meditation every day, do yoga on and off. Earlier this year, I was so stressed, I went off to a yoga ashram for 3 weeks and just there and, you know, getting back to my yoga practice, but also just that calmness of doing daily satsangs and meditation was just great for a reset. So I think the one, I guess, or the one life lesson maybe that I'd like to share, life is definitely a journey and not the destination. So if you can just learn not to be overly goal oriented or outcome focused,
result based,
you will free yourself to discover so many other possibilities. You know, it's not a straight path, right? It's a meandering road. There might be detours, there might be amazing things to discover, but if you're just focused on reaching A to B, you're going to miss out on everything else along the way. So just embrace the unknown, so to say, and just, then you'll just be a lot less stressed.
So you also work with companies through CSR programs, merchandise and workshops. What do you think corporates gain from engaging with craft-based livelihood?
Oh, a lot, I would say. From interacting with so many companies, And the ones who have really well-defined CSR programs, they have already sort of decided, right, which are the focus areas for us. Like I was mentioning earlier, there are so many different sectors within the larger development space. So if they have chosen to work on livelihoods or skill training, or specifically chosen to focus on craft, culture, heritage, then of course that's the great foot in the door for us. And that's where, you know, we can start off having these discussions. I think for them, that commitment that they have to benefiting all the unemployed, the marginalized communities, that's definitely a big takeaway and return for the faith that they put in all of us, right? Those who are implementing bodies. Secondly, for their employees also, it's a great way to get exposed, whether it's through having, say, a corporate stall, or having a volunteer program at one of our centers, or having a workshop which is more hands-on and you actually get to try your hand at, you know, something creative. So that's a great way to also have, I guess, a work-life balance in some way, have a little more creative development and employee engagement. So yeah, there are multiple benefits, I would say.
Okay. And also you worked across cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Lucknow. What's the next step in scaling Craftizen's impact even further?
Oh, and can I just add for corporates, right? When they gift a curated hamper.
That's a feeling.
Yes, and with a nice story about what is the impact behind it. Then I just feel like that the value of it to the end receiver is that much nicer and sweeter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I would say that that's also another huge benefit. So coming back to your question of scale. Today we've got 3 offices, and we've got another 4-5 locations where we've got team members. So currently 11 states. I think more than spreading ourselves too thin, I'd like to consolidate at this point. We have identified several of these states as high potential states in the sense while we are working with our Petalist program for adults with intellectual disability, and all of these, our women empowerment and our traditional craft program is in fewer states. So can we expand that, for example, to these other states, right? And can we become a little more focused in terms of depth within these regions? So that would be the goal going forward. And like our Petalist program, our green skilling, which is now we call it the Petalist program, which is our flagship, we're building a second program which is on craft and tourism. So that's going to look at traditional artisans, but also women groups that are in proximity to tourism destinations, and develop beautiful tourist souvenirs, but also enable experiential tourism for those communities. So that's the next program we're building.
I look forward to that. It sounds very nice. So quick round. When you're not leading Craftizen, what brings you joy?
I guess I love doing something creative myself. So taking part in like a creative workshop myself, or even doing like an adult coloring book, for example. I already said going for a wildlife safari and going to all of these melas. But yeah, just I think doing something with my hands, because on a day-to-day basis, even though my work is creative, a lot of it is honestly on the laptop and, you know, not really hands-on. So I think just doing something that gets me also a little hands-on with the creative process, that gives you a lot of joy.
What's a book, movie or song that has shaped your life philosophy?
So it's actually a reality show, Shark Tank USA. I feel I started watching it the year before I started Craftizen, and I think those maybe seasons, maybe 3 to 7, 8, 10 or something, you know, I was just like hooked onto it. And I've just learned so much about entrepreneurship. Because even though we are, you know, more about grant funding rather than say equity investment, but the principles of business are still the same, right? And I think just having that structure approach to business, so yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Nice. What's a failure that you're now deeply grateful for?
Oh, quite a few. But if I had to pick one, so when we got our very first CSR donor, they actually gave us 3 projects to start with. And while 2 were very successful, one unfortunately was not. We could have maybe salvaged it, But given that we were a small, new, young entity and we had limited bandwidth, I actually took a very tough call to close that project. And I explained to the donor that we would rather build these other two that were successful and, not sort of be unsure about whether we could achieve the intended milestones and deliverables for that project. And that actually paid off. At that time, I remember it was gut wrenching, right? Because first year of projects. But now in retrospect, that was one of the best decisions I made. That donor is still with us 10 years now. So
Nice.
it definitely paid off. Yeah.
Perfect.
So I guess just maybe be honest about what you
Yeah.
can and cannot
Yeah.
do. And yeah, that was the learning.
You've received awards like the Kamla Rising Star Award, Devi Award, and even recognition from Harvard. Now, those are big milestones. And so I'm curious, what's been more meaningful, the award, the interesting people, and the stories you've discovered because of it? What is it?
I mean, for sure, I think the accolade itself and the recognition itself is very special.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in the social sector, our work is like an iceberg, you only see the top part of it. And people see all the, like at least in
Yeah.
crafts, they see the creativity, they
Yeah.
see, the end results, which is
Yeah.
beautiful. But they don't see all the hard work
Yeah.
of years and years of all the work in progress, all the designs that never made it, all the products and skills that are still being refined, right? So I feel like when we get acknowledged, it's a big motivation. And I always share every award with my entire team. It's
Nice.
never an individual effort. So I especially think, for all of us, for our team, all of our artisans, and everybody that supports us, it's nice. It's like a good way to feel motivated and
Yeah.
proud of the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
But yes, there have been so many fellow awardees and in very interesting and inspiring people I've met over the years, some of whom have actually become collaborators as well. So it's,
Yeah.
win-win on all sides.
Are you at peace with all your accomplishments?
I think there's still miles to go. So no, I think there's years to go yet before I think I hang up my boots.
Okay.
So yeah, miles to go yet.
Thank you so much, Mayura. This was totally very inspiring, and I'm happy to chat with you today and learn so much from you.
Thank you so much
Thank
to you
you.
and your entire team.
Thank
This is a really easygoing, free-flowing chat,
Yeah.
and thank you.
From temple flowers reborn into colors of joy to crafts reborn into communities of hope, Mayura Balasubramanian reminds us that when purpose meets passion, even the simplest hands can craft magic. Her journey with Craftizen isn't living proof that sustainability isn't a trend, it's a way of giving back. Thank you for listening to this episode of Expressions Podcast. If Mayura's story inspired you, share it forward. And remember, every act of kindness, every creative spark, and every voice of change begins with a single expression.